Good afternoon and welcome to my qualitative presentation. The purpose of this study is to determine why teachers leave Title I schools for non-Title I schools. Ultimately, the data gathered should provide a rank-ordered list of the most impactful perceptions leavers had. What is impacting them the most and in the order of the impact. This information will support school leaders by providing early warning signs of potential leaders, allow educational leaders to make informed decisions about the impact of the environmental factors on the teacher and implement interventions as appropriate. Like many of you, my research questions have evolved throughout this class. I have three similar research questions. What impact did the teacher's perception of how well administrators intervene and respond to student behaviors have on the teacher's decision to exit the Title I school? And then the next two are worded similarly, but they're one about parental support. How does the teacher's perception about the level of parental support affect their decision? And then how does the teacher's perceptions of peer support, those professional relationships on the hallway, impact their decision to leave? And then ultimately, as that transition, how has that impacted the teacher? So were their perceptions from the Title I school alleviated at the new school? I believe a phenomenological study is the best course of action for this research based on it's ultimately about the subjective experience. The assumption is the experience constitutes reality, and it's about the perceptions of those people who are experiencing that phenomenon. Theoretical framework is the self-efficacy theory. Certain populations of teachers don't take ownership and can blame others. You may know some of these teachers yourself. I've worked with them as a teacher and I've worked with them as a coach. These are not the teachers I'm concerned about, nor is this research focused on. Rather, the teacher, that well-known teacher, that high-quality teacher, the ones who accept responsibility, they're looking for solutions. They're putting in the extra time. They're seeking out. They're collaborating. They eventually move from this type of teacher to one who begins to complain about external factors and the lack of support. Their thoughts move from an I can to an I can't do this alone, which ultimately erodes their self-efficacy, leading to somewhat of a fight or flight response. The greater the teacher's perception, the greater the teacher's perception that there's a lack of support, either by administrators, by parents, by peers, the more negative the impact on that teacher's self-efficacy. And ultimately leads many of our teachers to depart the Title I of the school. At least that is the theory at this time. Conceptually speaking, the study focuses on the relationship between a teacher's positive or negative perceptions and stakeholder support, and how that ultimately influences their desire to depart the school, their retention over time. I will control for retirement eligibility. I'll use three forms of data to support triangulation and trustworthiness: the survey, an interview, and focus groups. The survey will definitely use a category scale, and I've listed the examples on the slide here for you. In addition, I am considering including a bipolar adjective scale to help kind of gauge the level within the teacher's decision. Additionally, the survey will include open-ended questions, and though 4 examples are on this slide for your review. But you'll notice as you review these questions, for example, what are the top 3 differences between your previous school and your current school in regards to peer relations, parent support, admin support? Ultimately, as part of this phenomenological study, we want to determine if that phenomenon and those perceptions were addressed with the change. Not part of this study, but my current thought is some teachers will depart a Title I school for a non-Title I, hoping it's different. And then when it's not, they ultimately leave teaching. And I think we see that in some of the research as well. But for others, they find a difference. And so I want to kind of include that in the survey process, because ultimately it's about really understanding these teachers' perceptions of the reality. And that's the reason for this phenomenological study. The focus group, some of the questions will be based on the survey responses, but primarily it's designed for deeper exploration of the reasons behind the numbers, right? And one of the pieces I love about the focus group is, when someone completes a survey, they're often in that moment, and for some, they have trouble, thinking about what happened last year or 2 years ago, and the effects aren't always as fresh. And in the focus group, someone will mention something, specific comment, or provide an example that serves as a basis for extending that conversation, and others, oh yeah, me too, or that's right, and that will serve to help support that conversation, to really leave there with a better understanding of what those numbers mean and the true impact on the teacher. I do anticipate some teachers not feeling comfortable with a video, and so probably taking an audio recording, and then I'll take anecdotal notes on body language and expression. The one-on-one interviews will further explore both the survey and the focus group results and serve to clarify, that data and relationships further. Also, sometimes in focus groups, excuse me, we can turn down a strange road, or not fully explore a comment that someone has. And so I see the interviews as an opportunity to have both structure and flexibility, in that I anticipate a standard list of questions followed by specific questions as a result of the dialogue during the focus group, to further explore either a comment someone made and we didn't get to fully investigate, or in some cases we may have teachers who disagree completely with something that's said, and so we can explore that further through the interview process as well, because ultimately we want to find the real reason about what's happening in the most transparent and trustworthy manner we can. So I see that interview process supporting that as well. For the trustworthiness component, obviously we've talked a little bit about triangulation using the 3 manners for dependability. I have 2 great people that recently earned their doctorates, actually last year, that have agreed to support me through the process as peer debriefers. The focus group process itself serves as a member check, And then, of course, the potential for bias and the techniques implemented to ensure trustworthiness will be clearly explained and available for review. The participant selection process. Currently, I plan on using our district level assets to identify teachers who have departed Title I schools the previous year, previous 3 years, and the previous 5 years. I really see the 5th year as a cutoff, just to better support, accurate memory and retelling, realizations of the influences that impacted those teachers. My belief is I'll have enough based on last year's departures. The school I'm moving to next year, for example, lost 11 teachers. But I may need to use teachers from the last 3 or 5 years as well. So that is in the plan. Either way, I'll move back the number of years, but not past 5, to arrive at a survey sampling of 80 or greater. I hope to have focus group numbers in excess of 30. I plan on running 2 focus groups to keep the size small enough that it's intimate, to help support that sharing and kind of the trusting that comes along with a more intimate setting, and also give teachers more choice on attendance options. And then ultimately interviewing individually at least 20 people, but I hope to have 40 as my number. The delimitations and limitations of this study. Really, I believe one of the greatest strengths of this study is the size of our district. We have a tremendous number of schools and a great mix between Title I and non-Title I schools, and rural and urban. So currently I plan on sampling K through 12 teachers of all the schools in the district. And at this time, I don't necessarily plan to segregate the data by the rural or urban schools within the district or by grade level. However, if that's feasible in the survey, I can see a kind of a general feedback and then some specifics maybe to grade level and urban or rural. But that will ultimately obviously depend on the data. There may not be a distinction, and I think ideally there won't be. Ideally, the perceptions will be very similar across grade levels and across urban or rural. Well, I think that would serve the validity aspect, but we'll see what the data tells us. And I think this is, as far as building capacity, a unique approach to teacher retention that can inform hiring practices and provide leaders insight into how to better support and differentiate teacher development. There's a lot of research on retention in general. Much of it talks about professional development, but I've yet to have a conversation with a single teacher who's considering leaving who mentions a failure of professional development or principal feedback as a reason. It's always, always, always tied to the questions that I've turned into research questions about frustrations about a lack of support when they reach out to admin or parents or peers. And over time, and I've watched this happen so many times that I just felt like it had to become the research component. Great teachers, ones that help develop me and help me become, the teacher I am. Over time, those frustrations get to the point where they move, just the way they talk changes from I can, to my students can, my students will, to Admin won't, parents won't, students won't. And that's tough to watch. And I kind of feel like when that begins to happen, it becomes the writing on the wall. And I think it's important that we have this study uh, so we can have a candid conversation about what's really happening here so we can address it. Because if we don't, then obviously there's no chance of changing it. Um, our district, for example, has implemented rigorous teacher transition programs, site-based induction programs, um, but the retention hasn't changed. I think it's because we're missing something. And I truly hope this research helps us determine what that something is so we can. Because, like many of you, we know we need great teachers everywhere, uh, but I truly believe the schools that are Title I schools struggle to retain some of those best teachers. One, they struggle to hire the best teachers because they're competing with schools with different reputations, and it becomes a kind of perpetual cycle, and we need to break that cycle. And I truly hope this research will help with that process. Resources, I've listed a few here that I've used within this presentation today. But I would like to take this time to thank all of you for your support through the process. My research questions have evolved tremendously through both Dr. Taylor's feedback and through many of you students who have commented on my work or asked questions, which have led to deeper reflection and revision. So I thank you for that, and I wish all of you the best of luck in your work and dissertations.